Thanks for checking out another sermon from the Internet's Church of Metal, Rockin' Metal Revival. You can download the entire show at rmrshow.com or check out this highlight from the latest RMR.
Because obviously that doesn't mean anything without them. So what's the upside for them? They can do whatever they want, that band. They do their own festivals in Europe now. I mean, it's not, they don't, the only upside for them is it's a cool credibility thing, and it's where they came from, and, it would be a nice thing to see, but there's way too many layers to it. And I can tell you where that thing got started. I was there when it got started. It got started at the bar at the House of Blues in Cleveland at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction.
Really?
And I was standing there with Charlie and Scott from Anthrax, who we were there together. We were there as guests of Metallica for their Hall of Fame. And we're at the after party, and Lars is at the bar with us, and we're talking and having a drink. And Lars, after a few drinks, blurted it out and said, "Hey, man, wouldn't it be cool if..." And Scott and Charlie were, of course, yeah, it would be cool. They'd love to do it. But it was just talk. I mean, we talked about so many different things, but it somehow took on some life. And, Lars is such a metal purist and such a fan. I'm sure in his heart he'd probably love to do it, but it's much more involved than just saying it's going to happen. But it just, it took on some sort of life of its own. But even Mustaine said, I don't see it happening.
Eddie, I went to the Masters of Metal tour with Heaven and Hell and Priest and Motorhead and Testament. Now, do you see any bands coming up now that are going to stand the test of time like those bands right there? Or are we going to have to hold on to our old records?
I don't know. That's a great question, and I'll tell you, I think about that all the time, because you look at the age. And I'm not saying this to diss any of these guys. I'm just calling it like it is. None of us are getting any younger. And our heroes are now in their 60s or close to it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing the effect of age on a lot of these guys. They're breaking down. I mean, Eddie Van Halen had an operation on his hand. Paul Stanley has hip replacement. Tony Iommi's going in getting an operation on his hand. Steven Tyler's, fallen off the stage. Joe Perry had knee replacement. I mean, Tom Hamilton's been fighting cancer. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So, it's not easy. And I wonder, because those guys are still the icons, they're still the biggest people. I don't know if there's a band, even if you look to the bands from the 80s, how many of them have really stood up, and do people really care about beyond a club-level act?
Mm-hmm.
Not many. I mean, the only band that's crossed over to a whole other generation and world is Bon Jovi from that scene. But I don't know. I really don't know. I love Buck Cherry, and I was so thrilled when they got new life a couple years ago. I had Keith Nelson on my show last night, and, I was as disappointed as anyone at the performance or lack thereof or interest in their latest album. They came out with a record that almost sold 2 million copies a couple years ago, and, Crazy Bitch was this massive song, and then they put out a new record, and it sold a fraction of that. And it's almost like, where were the nearly 2 million people that bought the album 15?
Mm-hmm.
Did they just not... I mean, it just doesn't seem like there's any loyalty. It just seems like if you bought that album, at least half would have to care about what the next record would sound like. And it's not like they made a bad record or the next album was just a total departure. So it's really weird. I think it's a lot to do with the world we live in right now. There's so many diversions, video games, and 1,000 channels on your TV, and satellite radio and the internet and iPods and, whatever, that it's just, people are just not nearly as loyal and fanatical about the stuff that they love.
Well, yeah, and it's like you said, there's just too many other things going on. I mean, when I was growing up as a kid, you didn't have a lot to do other than listen to your records, So there's all those distractions, as you mentioned.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, and I don't know what's going to happen when these bands go away because they either retire or, God forbid, somebody dies or whatever, or they just physically can't do it anymore. I don't know. And look how many of them have said we're done and keep coming back, whether it's Ozzy or whether it's Kiss or, there's a lot of bands that have said, we're farewell, thank you, we're done, we don't want to stay at the party too long. And here we are 10 years later, they're coming back for more because the void is still there and there's still money to be made and they're still going to get a level of attention because no one else has stepped in and filled the slot.
Exactly. Well, Eddie, we've had a great time having you on today. One more time, the premiere of That Metal Show on VH1 Classic is coming up on October 3rd, you said?
Yeah, it's a 1 hour special, October 3rd, and that will be the Anvil special from Times Square, and then picking up right after that, then in our usual 11 o'clock slot, and I get Central Time 10 o'clock on Saturday nights will be a new episode for the next couple months. We've got a total of 9 new ones that will roll out in this next stretch. Big difference this time around versus the previous 2 runs of shows is that those shows were all shot a couple months in advance to when they actually went on the air.
Mm-hmm.
This time around, it's actually only going to be about a week to 2 weeks from the time we actually do them to when people see them. So in their first run, they'll seem a lot more current. They're going to turn around and get them on a lot quicker. And, we hope, Don, Jim, and I talk about this all the time, and we really hope that it gets to a point and the support gets to a point where we can actually start doing it as a weekly show, and every week there's a new one. But again, we're dealing with, working with the network on what makes sense for them, and obviously the economy plays a huge role too. It's not cheap to do, and we're trying to make sure that we keep them as current as we can, but also try to stretch it as much as we can too. And if things keep going the way they are, though, we have a sponsor this year. Things start coming around. Maybe there's somewhere down the line where it can actually go to another level. But we're thrilled where it's at, and we thank everybody for all the support.
Well, thank you. It's a great show. All your shows that you've got going right now are absolutely incredible. So, everybody, if you're not aware, check Eddie out on Sirius XM on his live show, That Metal Show on VH1 Classics. And
thanks for carrying the torch of metal for us, Eddie.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys. Yeah, and I got the show. Just so everybody knows, there's a show that's flagship from New York on Friday nights. That's been my thing I've been doing forever, and that's on regular FM radio. But you can tap into the stream and hear that no matter where you are, and that's 11 o'clock Eastern Time on Friday nights. And the last thing, if you don't mind, if I just mention, is my
Sure.
website, which is just eddietrunk.com. So many people, I MySpaced you, I Twittered you, I Facebooked you, this and that. A lot of times, it's not me.
Okay.
There's a couple things out there that are not me that or things that, or they're things I'm just not actively involved in. So the best thing is my own site. I try to channel everything towards just one thing, which is eddietrunk.com, and you can find out if there are other sort of sites or things I'm doing. It'll be listed there. But there's audio and video, and a lot of the stuff that we do gets put up there on the TV show from time to time, and you can even hear the FM show on demand on there if you become a member of the site. So it's really developed that site in a big way in the last year or two. It was taken over by a company out of Boston that they run Aerosmith sites, some really big sites, and they're always looking for creative things to do. And there's a ton of free content on there, and now there's a layer where just for a few bucks a year you can get a whole bunch of exclusive stuff too. So appreciate people coming and checking out the site.
All right, very cool. Well, then, Eddie Trunk, it has been an honor having you on Rockin' Metal Revival.
Guys, I appreciate it, and it's always good to talk to you. And again, thank you for the support, and thanks for what you do, man. It's a team effort. We're all in this together, and just to share and support all the bands that we love. And I'm sure none of us are getting rich at it, so it's fun to do it.
He knows.
And that's the most important
Right.
thing, to let everybody know, what these bands are doing and getting the word out. So, what you guys do is a great job also.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'd love to have you on again sometime, Eddie, if you got the time.
Anytime.
There you are, another sermon from Rockin' Metal Revival. The RMR is a 3-hour hard rock heavy metal show that can be heard anytime at rmrshow.com.